The snow fell thick and heavy over Boston that December night in 2018, blanketing the historic streets in white silence. Most people had retreated indoors, away from the biting wind that swept through the city like frozen knives, but not everyone had somewhere warm to go. Maya Chen clutched her worn backpack tighter as she hurried through the near-empty streets of Back Bay, her breath forming small clouds in the frigid air. At 21, she was in her final year at Boston University, studying nursing with a minor in Arabic, an unusual combination that had raised eyebrows among her classmates. Her parents, Chinese immigrants who ran a small laundromat in Chinatown, had sacrificed everything to give her this chance. She wouldn't waste it. Her shift at the 24-hour convenience store had just ended, and exhaustion pulled at her bones. Between classes, studying, and 2 part-time jobs, sleep had become a luxury she could barely afford. But the bills didn't pay themselves, and her parents' health was declining. Her father's arthritis had worsened, making it harder for him to work the long hours the laundromat demanded. Maya's phone buzzed. A text from her mother. "Your father fell today. He's okay, but doctor says he needs to rest. Don't worry about us. Focus on your studies." Maya's chest tightened. Don't worry? How could she not worry? She was so lost in thought that she almost didn't notice the man slumped against the wall of a closed bank building. Almost. Before we continue with this incredible story, we'd love to know, where in the world are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you enjoy stories that touch the heart and surprise the mind, hit that subscribe button so you never miss our next tale. Trust us, you won't want to miss what happens next. Now, back to that snowy night in Boston. The man was middle-aged, perhaps in his 50s, wearing an expensive-looking wool coat that was now soaked through. His face was pale, almost gray, and he was trembling violently. Maya's nursing training kicked in immediately. She knelt beside him, her hand going to his wrist to check his pulse. It was rapid and weak. "Sir? Sir, can you hear me?" she said in English, then switched to Mandarin, thinking he might be a tourist. No response. Something about his features made her try one more language. "Hal Tastati and Tasmani, can you hear me?" In Arabic. His eyes flickered open, dark brown, glazed with pain and confusion. "Naam," he whispered. "Yes." Maya's mind raced. He was hypothermic, possibly in shock. She needed to get him warm and figure out what was wrong. "Ana mumarida. Sausaiduka. I'm a nurse. I'll help you." She wasn't technically a nurse yet, but close enough. She pulled off her own jacket, a thin thing that did little against the cold anyway, and wrapped it around his shoulders. Then she called 911. As they waited for the ambulance, she kept him talking, asking simple questions in Arabic. His name was Khalid. He was from Dubai. He was in Boston for business meetings, but had felt unwell, dizzy. He'd stepped outside the hotel for air and couldn't remember how he ended up here. Maya noticed something else. A medical alert bracelet on his wrist. She squinted to read it in the dim streetlight. Severe diabetes. Her heart sank. This wasn't just hypothermia. He was likely experiencing hypoglycemia, dangerously low blood sugar. She rummaged through her backpack and found a small bottle of orange juice she'd been saving for her walk home. She helped him drink it slowly, carefully. "Drink this. Small sips," she instructed in Arabic. His hands shook as he gripped the bottle. The ambulance arrived within 10 minutes. Though it felt like an eternity. The paramedics took over, praising Maya for her quick thinking. The orange juice had likely prevented him from slipping into a diabetic coma. As they loaded Khalid onto the stretcher, he gripped Maya's hand weakly. "Shukran jazilan," he said, his voice barely audible. "Thank you so much." "Ma ismuki, what's your name?" "Maya Chen," she replied, squeezing his hand gently. "You're going to be okay. I won't forget this," he said in heavily accented English. His eyes locked on hers with an intensity that cut through his weakened state. "I promise you." The ambulance doors closed, and Maya stood alone in the snow, shivering without her jacket. She wrapped her arms around herself and started the long walk back to her cramped studio apartment in Allston. Her phone buzzed again, another text from her mother about her father's medical bills. Maya felt the familiar weight of worry settle over her shoulders, heavier than any winter coat. She never expected to see Khalid again. In a city of over 690,000 people, one random encounter seemed destined to fade into memory. But Khalid wasn't a random person, and he was a man who kept his promises. 3 days later, a package arrived at Maya's apartment. Inside was her jacket, professionally cleaned and folded, along with a handwritten note in Arabic and English. "Thank you for saving my life. You gave more than warmth that night. You gave hope. With deepest gratitude, Khalid Al-Rashid." There was also a business card with a Dubai address and phone number. Maya tucked the card into her wallet and went back to her overwhelming routine. Finals were approaching, and she had papers to write, shifts to cover, and mounting anxiety about her family's finances. The encounter with Khalid became a story she occasionally told friends, a reminder that sometimes kindness was its own reward. Winter turned to spring. Spring to summer. Maya's final year of nursing school arrived with crushing intensity. The coursework was brutal, clinical rotations exhausting, and the pressure to secure a job after graduation felt suffocating. Her father's condition had stabilized but wasn't improving. The laundromat was struggling. Competition from newer, flashier facilities and rising rent were slowly strangling the small business that had sustained her family for 15 years. One particularly difficult night in October 2019, Maya sat in the university library, surrounded by textbooks and empty coffee cups. She'd been studying for her nursing boards while simultaneously filling out job applications. The rejection emails were piling up. "We've decided to move forward with other candidates. Thank you for your interest, but..." Unfortunately, at this time, her phone rang, an unknown international number. She almost didn't answer, assuming it was spam. "Hello? Maya Chen?" The voice was formal, accented. "This is Amira Hassan, calling on behalf of Mr. Khalid Al-Rashid. Do you remember meeting him in Boston last December?" Maya's breath caught. "Yes, of course. Is he all right?" "He's very well, thanks to you. Mr. Al-Rashid would like to speak with you if you have a moment." There was a click, then a familiar voice, stronger now, filled with warmth. "Maya, I told you I wouldn't forget." They spoke for over an hour. Khalid explained that he'd returned to Dubai after his hospitalization in Boston, sobered by how close he'd come to death. He'd been working too hard, neglecting his health, convinced that his wealth and power made him invincible. Maya had reminded him of his mortality and his humanity. "I've been following your journey," Khalid said. "I hope you don't find that intrusive. I asked the hospital to keep me informed about the young woman who saved me. When I learned you were a nursing student, it felt like destiny." Maya felt a chill that had nothing to do with the library's air conditioning. "Following my journey? Nothing invasive, I assure you. Just, I wanted to know you were well." "Maya, I'm calling because I'd like to help you, the way you helped me. I understand you're looking for employment after graduation." Yes, but I'm not asking for..." "I know you're not asking. That's precisely why I'm offering. My family owns several private hospitals across the Middle East and in Europe. We're opening a new medical center in Boston next year. I'd like to offer you a position, full salary during your final semester, guaranteed employment after graduation, and assistance with your family's financial difficulties." It was too much, too generous, too good to be true. Maya's journalism professor had once warned the class about scams targeting vulnerable students. "Mr. Al-Rashid, I appreciate the gesture, but I can't accept..." "I'm not a charity, Maya, and this isn't pity." His voice was firm but kind. "That night, you didn't see a wealthy man or a poor man. You saw a human being who needed help, and you gave it without hesitation, at cost to yourself. You gave me your jacket, your juice, your time. You used your skills and your knowledge. That's the kind of nurse, the kind of person I want in my hospitals. Please, at least think about it." Maya did think about it. She thought about her father's pain, her mother's exhaustion, the stack of medical bills on their kitchen table. She thought about her own dreams of making a real difference in healthcare. She thought about the risks of accepting help from a stranger and the risks of refusing it. After a week of research, verifying Khalid's identity, his business holdings, the legitimacy of his offer, Maya made a decision that would change everything. She said yes. The contract arrived by courier, a position as a clinical nurse specialist at the soon-to-open Al-Rashid Medical Center in Boston, starting salary far above what most new graduates could expect, signing bonus, health insurance that covered her entire family, and a stipend for her final semester so she could focus on her studies instead of working 2 jobs. There was one unusual clause. She was required to complete a 3-month training program in Dubai after graduation, all expenses paid. It seemed strange, but not unreasonable. She'd study their healthcare protocols, learn about their patient care philosophy, and gain international experience that would strengthen her resume. Maya's parents were skeptical at first. Her father, conservative and cautious, worried about his daughter traveling alone to the Middle East. But Maya reminded him that she'd studied Arabic for a reason. She'd always been fascinated by different cultures, different ways of healing and helping. This was an opportunity most people only dreamed about. Her friends at BU were split. Some celebrated her good fortune. Others whispered about how convenient it all seemed, how strange that a billionaire would track down a student nurse for a single act of kindness. "It doesn't add up," her roommate Sarah said. "Rich people don't work like that. What does he really want?" Maya didn't have an answer. She only knew that every interaction with Khalid and his staff had been professional, respectful, and transparent. The contract had been reviewed by a lawyer her uncle recommended. Everything checked out. The months until graduation blurred together in a haze of studying, clinical rotations, and increasing excitement. Without the stress of working 2 jobs, Maya's grades improved. She passed her NCLEX exam on the first try. Her father's health stabilized with better care that the new insurance covered. The laundromat's emergency repairs were handled. For the first time in years, Maya's family could breathe. May 2020 arrived with an irony nobody could have predicted. The COVID-19 pandemic had transformed the world. Maya's graduation ceremony was postponed, then converted to a virtual event. She sat in her apartment wearing her cap and gown, watching names scroll across a laptop screen, feeling simultaneously proud and cheated. 4 years of sacrifice, and this was how it ended. Alone, in front of a computer, her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Congratulations, graduate Chen. Your training in Dubai will begin in September, after the initial wave of the pandemic settles. Until then, you'll work at Massachusetts General Hospital's COVID unit. You'll be paid your full contracted salary. Consider this part of your education. Signed, Khalid Al-Rashid." Maya stared at the message. The pandemic had created a nursing shortage so severe that hospitals were desperate for help, and Khalid was sending her straight into the heart of it, with protection and compensation most nurses didn't have. The next 4 months were the hardest of Maya's life. She saw death daily, held hands of dying patients whose families couldn't be present, worked shifts so long she sometimes slept in her car. She cried in hospital bathrooms. She questioned her choice to become a nurse. She saw healthcare heroes celebrated and simultaneously exploited. But she also saw resilience, courage, the incredible capacity of humans to care for each other in the darkest times. She learned more about nursing in those 4 months than in 4 years of school. She learned about herself too, discovered reserves of strength she didn't know existed. Khalid called her twice during that period, just to check in. He didn't press her about Dubai or the contract. He asked how she was coping, if she had proper PPE, if she needed anything. "The training can wait," he said. "Your well-being cannot." In September 2020, with the pandemic's grip temporarily loosened, Maya boarded a flight to Dubai. She'd never been outside the United States before. Her parents came to the airport, her father moving stiffly but managing a smile. "Make us proud," her mother said, hugging her tightly. "You already have," her father added. "Just come home safe." Dubai was unlike anything Maya had imagined. The gleaming skyscrapers, the organized chaos of different cultures colliding and coexisting, the heat that hit her like a physical force when she stepped off the plane. A driver met her at the airport, holding a sign with her name, and took her to a furnished apartment in a modern building near the Dubai Marina. The Al-Rashid Medical Center's main hospital was a marvel. State-of-the-art equipment, multilingual staff, a philosophy of care that blended cutting-edge Western medicine with holistic Middle Eastern traditions. Maya's training was intensive but fascinating. She learned about cultural competency in healthcare, about treating patients whose beliefs and backgrounds differed vastly from her own, about the privilege and responsibility of working in a wealthy institution that served both local Emiratis and medical tourists from around the world. She met Khalid twice during her first month. Both times were brief, professional meetings, where he asked about her training and made sure she was adjusting well. He seemed different from the vulnerable man she'd found in the snow, confident, commanding, but still possessing that same underlying warmth she'd glimpsed that night. "You're doing excellent work," he told her after observing her during a patient consultation. "You have a gift for connecting with people, regardless of language or background. That's rare." 2 months into her training, Maya was called to Khalid's office. She'd never been there before. A top-floor suite with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Persian Gulf. Khalid sat behind a massive desk, but he stood when she entered, gesturing to a sitting area with comfortable chairs. "Please sit. Would you like tea?" They went through the pleasantries, but Maya could sense something was different. Khalid seemed nervous, a quality she wouldn't have associated with a billionaire businessman. "Maya, I need to tell you something," he began, his hands clasped together. "The full truth about why I've invested so much in helping you." Maya's heart began to race. Here it comes, she thought. The catch, the real reason. She straightened in her chair, preparing herself. "That night in Boston, when you found me, I was dying. The doctors confirmed it later. Another 20 minutes, maybe 30, and I would have been gone. Diabetic shock, hypothermia, cardiac stress. You didn't just help me, you saved my life." He paused, his eyes distant. "But that's not the remarkable part." He stood and walked to the window, his back to her. I have 3 daughters, Maya. My youngest, Layla, is 23 now. 8 years ago, when she was 15, she was diagnosed with leukemia. We tried everything. The best doctors, experimental treatments, hospitals in America, Europe, Asia. Nothing worked. She was dying. Maya's throat tightened. She remained silent, letting him speak. We were at Johns Hopkins in Baltimore for what we thought was her final treatment. She was so weak, so sick. I was desperate. I prayed in ways I hadn't prayed since I was a child. And then, one night, a young hospital volunteer sat with Layla when I had to step out to take a business call that couldn't wait. This volunteer, a high school student doing community service, talked to Layla for hours, brought her books, made her laugh for the first time in months. Khalid turned to face Maya, his eyes glistening. That volunteer mentioned she was learning Mandarin because she wanted to connect with more people, help more people. She talked about her parents who worked so hard, about her dreams of becoming a nurse. She stayed past her shift because Layla asked her to. Such a small kindness, but it gave my daughter hope when she had none. Maya's breath caught. No, it couldn't be. The next day, a donor match was found. A miracle, the doctors said. Layla survived. She's healthy now, studying art history in London, living the life we thought we'd lost. Khalid's voice cracked slightly. I never forgot that volunteer. I tried to find her afterward, to thank her, but the hospital's records were incomplete. I only knew her first name, Maya. The room spun. Maya remembered. Of course she remembered. The summer before college, she'd volunteered at Johns Hopkins as part of a program for pre-med students. There was a girl, a beautiful girl with a headscarf, and the saddest eyes Maya had ever seen. They'd talked about books, about art, about stupid television shows. Maya had braided friendship bracelets with her because she'd read that art therapy helped cancer patients. Such a small thing. When you knelt beside me in that snow, Khalid continued, and you spoke Arabic, and I heard your name, I wondered, could it be the same Maya? The same young woman who'd shown such kindness to my daughter? I looked into it. Different cities, years apart, but the same compassionate soul. He moved closer, his expression intense. You saved both of us, Maya, my daughter and me. 2 moments of grace, years apart, and both times you expected nothing in return. Tears streamed down Maya's face. I didn't know. I never knew what happened to her. I hoped, I prayed she'd survived. She did, because of you, because of an 18-year-old volunteer who stayed late to braid friendship bracelets and talk about stupid reality television. Khalid's own eyes were wet now, so when I promised I wouldn't forget, I meant it. This isn't charity, Maya. This is gratitude. This is recognition. You gave my family everything that matters, and you did it twice, without knowing who we were or what you'd given. Maya couldn't speak. The weight of the revelation pressed down on her chest. The impossible coincidence that wasn't a coincidence at all. The invisible threads connecting that sick teenager in Baltimore to the dying man in Boston's snow. Both of them saved by a young woman who simply couldn't walk past someone who needed help. There's more, Khalid said gently. Your training here isn't just training. I've been preparing something for you. A gift, but also an opportunity. Will you come with me? In a daze, Maya followed Khalid out of the office, down to the parking garage, and into a luxury car. They drove through Dubai's streets in silence, Maya's mind reeling. They arrived at a construction site on the outskirts of the city, a massive complex of buildings in various stages of completion. The Al-Rashid Foundation Medical Campus, Khalid announced as they stepped out. Free healthcare for low-income families, refugees and migrant workers, a place where people are treated with dignity regardless of their ability to pay. It opens next year. He turned to her. I want you to help run it, not as a staff nurse, but as director of patient services. You'll shape how we care for people, train our staff, ensure that every patient is treated the way you treated me. With skill, yes, but also with humanity. I'm 22 years old, Maya whispered. I just graduated. I'm not qualified. You're more qualified than anyone I could hire. You understand what it means to struggle, to work multiple jobs, to worry about family. You've seen healthcare from the patient's side and the provider's side. You speak multiple languages. You don't just treat conditions, you treat people. Khalid's voice was firm. I'm not offering this because you saved my life, though you did. I'm offering it because you're exactly what healthcare needs, what this campus needs. Maya looked at the construction site, at the framework of buildings that would house the sick and suffering, and felt something shift inside her. This was bigger than Boston. bigger than one student's job prospects. This was a chance to help create something meaningful, to be part of real change in how healthcare was delivered. My family, she said quietly, they need me. My father, we'll relocate them if they want to come. Your father can retire with full medical coverage. Your mother too. Or if they want to stay in Boston, we'll ensure they're cared for. You'll have the resources to visit frequently. Maya, you won't lose your family. You'll gain the ability to finally take care of them the way you've always wanted to. It was too much. Too big. Too overwhelming. Can I think about it? Of course. Take all the time you need, but first, there's someone who wants to see you. They walked to one of the completed buildings, an administrative office. Inside, in a bright conference room, stood a young woman with dark hair and a brilliant smile. She wore a college sweatshirt and jeans, and in her hands, she held a worn friendship bracelet made of purple and blue thread. Maya, the young woman said, her voice trembling. I'm Layla. I don't know if you remember me, but Maya was across the room before Layla could finish, pulling her into a hug. They both sobbed, clinging to each other, two strangers connected by the thinnest thread of compassion that had somehow woven their lives together across years and continents. I never forgot you, Layla said through tears. I kept this bracelet. I wore it through every treatment, every surgery. It reminded me that someone cared, that there was kindness in the world. She pulled back, holding Maya at arm's length. When my father told me he'd found you, that you'd saved his life too, I knew it was meant to be. You're an angel, Maya. You have to say yes. You have to help us build this place. We need people like you. Maya looked between Khalid and Layla, at their hopeful faces, at the construction site visible through the window, the skeletal buildings that would become a haven for the desperate and forgotten. She thought about her parents in Boston, about the laundromat that had sustained them, about the long nights studying and working and worrying. She thought about the version of herself who'd knelt in the snow beside a dying stranger, who'd stayed late to braid bracelets with a sick teenager, who'd chosen compassion when it would have been easier to walk away. That girl had grown into someone stronger, someone capable of more than she'd ever imagined. I'll need to talk to my parents, Maya said slowly. And I'll need support, mentorship. I can't do this alone. You'll have everything you need, Khalid promised. An experienced team, training, resources. You won't be alone. And your voice, your perspective, that's what will make this place special. Maya took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision settle over her shoulders like her coat on that snowy night. Heavy, but necessary. Then yes, I'll do it. The room erupted in joy. Layla hugged her again, and Khalid wiped his eyes, trying to maintain his composure. They talked for hours after that, about the campus, about the mission, about Maya's vision for patient care. She discovered that she had ideas, opinions, a philosophy shaped by her own experiences of struggling through healthcare systems that often seemed designed to exclude rather than include. The next 2 years were transformative. Maya split her time between Boston and Dubai, commuting back and forth as the medical campus took shape. Her parents visited Dubai and were astonished by the life their daughter was building. Her father's health improved with better treatment. Her mother took up painting, a hobby she'd abandoned decades ago. The laundromat was sold at a fair price, finally releasing them from that burden. Maya threw herself into the work, hiring staff, developing training programs, establishing protocols that prioritized dignity and compassion alongside medical excellence. She learned to lead, to delegate, to fight for what she believed in when others disagreed. She made mistakes and learned from them. Khalid became a mentor, teaching her about business and administration while never losing sight of why they were doing this. Layla became a close friend, the little sister Maya never had. They traveled together, exploring Dubai and the surrounding Emirates, sharing meals and stories and dreams. Layla introduced Maya to other young Emiratis, to the vibrant arts scene, to the complex reality of a nation balancing tradition and rapid modernization. The Al-Rashid Foundation Medical Campus opened in March 2022 with a ceremony attended by dignitaries, media, and most importantly, hundreds of members of the communities they would serve. Maya stood on the stage beside Khalid, wearing the professional clothes she'd once thought she'd never afford, speaking about their mission to reporters who hung on her every word. But the moment she treasured most came after the ceremony ended. An elderly woman approached her, a Filipina domestic worker whose grandson had been treated in their pilot program. The woman took Maya's hand and said simply, "Thank you for seeing us, for treating us like we matter." That night, Maya stood on the balcony of her Dubai apartment, looking out at the city lights reflecting off the Persian Gulf. Her phone rang, her parents calling from Boston, wanting to hear every detail of the opening ceremony. They talked for an hour, her mother crying with pride, her father telling her how much her grandfather would have loved to see this moment. After they hung up, Maya remained on the balcony, thinking about the strange journey that had brought her here. From the snowstorm in Boston to this moment, from a chance encounter with a dying man to becoming part of something bigger than herself. How easily things could have been different if she'd walked a different route that night, if she'd been too tired to stop, if she'd ignored the man slumped against the wall. But she hadn't. She'd stopped because it was the right thing to do. She'd helped because someone needed help. And that simple choice had rippled outward in ways she never could have anticipated, changing her life and the lives of countless others. Her phone buzzed with a text from Khalid. "Tomorrow we begin the real work. Rest well, Director Chen. You've earned it." Director Chen, a title she'd never dreamed of holding at 24, a responsibility that both terrified and energized her. She typed back, ready for whatever comes next, and she was. Because Maya had learned something important over these years, that kindness was never wasted, that compassion was never too small to matter, that the most important moments in life often looked ordinary at the time. A young woman giving her jacket to a stranger, a volunteer staying late to braid bracelets. Small acts of grace that changed everything. She went inside, set her alarm, and climbed into bed. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new patience, new opportunities to make a difference. But tonight, she slept soundly, knowing she was exactly where she was meant to be. Not because of fate or destiny, but because she'd chosen, again and again, to be the person who stopped in the snow. And sometimes, that was enough to change the world.